At 88 years old, Jack Nicholson remains one of the most compelling figures Hollywood has ever produced. And now, after decades in the spotlight, he finally reflects on the truth about his own life and about the people who shaped it, including his longtime friendship with Robin Williams. Jack was born John Joseph Nicholson on April 22, 1937, in Neptune City, New Jersey. And from the very beginning, his life carried the kind of dramatic twist that could have been written for the screen. For years, Jack believed that his grandmother was his mother and that his biological mother was actually his sister. This secret, which he would only uncover well into adulthood, became one of the defining revelations of his personal life. It gave his story a strange, almost surreal quality, something that paralleled the complicated, layered performances he would later deliver as an actor. Raised in a working-class environment, Jack was far from destined for Hollywood royalty. Yet from an early age, he developed a fascination with storytelling and performance that would eventually become the foundation of his remarkable career. His entry into Hollywood wasn't glamorous. Nicholson began his professional life humbly, working as a gopher in MGM's cartoon studio, fetching coffee and running errands. But even in those small beginnings, he found himself surrounded by creativity and performance, and he knew this was the world he wanted to be part of. Breaking into acting proved to be a long and often discouraging road. In the late 1950s, Nicholson began taking roles in low-budget B-movies, many of which were produced by Roger Corman. These films didn't make him a household name, but they gave him a place to practice, to experiment, and to develop the style that would one day set him apart. Hollywood is an industry that rewards persistence more than quick success, and Nicholson embodied that persistence, refusing to walk away even when the breaks weren't coming. That persistence paid off in 1969, when Nicholson appeared in the countercultural landmark Easy Rider. His performance as the alcoholic lawyer George Hanson earned him his first Academy Award nomination, and in an instant, the actor who had spent years laboring in obscurity was thrust into the spotlight. This role not only launched him into mainstream recognition, but also marked the beginning of a string of unforgettable performances that would define cinema for decades to come. The 1970s proved to be Nicholson's decade. He wasn't just another actor. He became a symbol of the times. In 5 Easy Pieces, 1970, he captured the loneliness and disillusionment of a man struggling with identity and meaning in a world that seemed increasingly alienating. His performance struck a chord with audiences who felt the same kind of restlessness in their own lives. Just a few years later, in The Last Detail, 1973, Nicholson again delivered a performance that was both humorous and heartbreakingly real, playing a sailor tasked with escorting a young offender to prison. His raw, emotional delivery in that film showed audiences just how versatile he could be, but it was in 1975, with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that Nicholson truly cemented his place in cinematic history. Playing Randall McMurphy, a rebellious inmate who challenges the authority of Nurse Ratched, Nicholson gave a performance that was at once electric, defiant, and deeply human. The role won him his first Academy Award for Best Actor, but more importantly, it captured the rebellious energy of the 1970s counterculture. McMurphy wasn't just a character on the screen, he became a cultural figure, a symbol of resistance against oppression. It was the kind of role that only an actor of Nicholson's depth and intensity could bring to life, and it solidified him as not just a movie star, but an icon. The 1980s saw Nicholson continue to redefine what it meant to be a leading man. In Stanley Kubrick's chilling horror masterpiece The Shining, 1980, he delivered one of the most terrifying performances ever captured on film. As Jack Torrance, the writer slowly driven insane by isolation and supernatural forces, Nicholson managed to make madness both terrifying and magnetic. His infamous line, "Here's Johnny," is still quoted and parodied decades later, proof of how deeply his portrayal embedded itself in popular culture. Yet Nicholson wasn't confined to dark roles alone. Just 3 years later, in Terms of Endearment, 1983, he revealed a softer, more vulnerable side, playing retired astronaut Garrett Breedlove. The role won him another Academy Award, and it showed audiences that he could be as tender and charming as he was intense and menacing. This ability to move seamlessly between extremes, from madness to tenderness, from sinister to sympathetic, set Nicholson apart as one of the most versatile actors of his generation. By the end of the decade, Nicholson had reinvented himself yet again. In 1989, he took on the role of the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman. His larger-than-life performance, part sinister, part playful, captivated audiences around the world. Nicholson's Joker wasn't just a comic book villain. He was a character brought to life with charisma, menace, and humor in equal measure. His portrayal set a new standard for the way comic book villains would be played on screen, influencing generations of actors who would later take on the role. As the 1990s arrived, Jack Nicholson showed no signs of slowing down. In 1992, he gave one of his most commanding performances in A Few Good Men. Playing Colonel Nathan Jessup, Nicholson dominated the screen with an intensity that few actors could match. His thunderous delivery of the line, "You can't handle the truth," instantly became one of the most iconic moments in movie history. That single scene cemented not only the power of the film, but also Nicholson's status as a master of presence. When Jack was on screen, no one could look away. He had the rare ability to take a role, no matter how large or small, and make it unforgettable. Throughout the 1990s, Nicholson continued to balance blockbuster roles with more intimate, character-driven performances. In Wolf, 1994, he brought feral energy and tragic depth to the story of a man transformed by a werewolf bite, showing that he could still surprise audiences with something unexpected. Then, in 1997, Nicholson delivered one of the finest performances of his career in As Good as It Gets. Playing Melvin Udall, a misanthropic romance novelist struggling with obsessive-compulsive disorder, Nicholson brought humor, heartbreak, and humanity together in a way that few actors could. His portrayal earned him another Academy Award for Best Actor, making him one of only a handful of performers to win 3 Oscars. What made this role so extraordinary was how Nicholson took a character who could have been unlikable and made audiences feel compassion, even love, for him. It was a testament to his gift for finding the humanity in every role. The early 2000s saw Nicholson exploring yet another phase of his career. In About Schmidt, 2002, he gave a quiet, deeply reflective performance as a recently retired man grappling with loneliness, regret, and the meaning of his life. Stripped of his trademark swagger, Nicholson revealed a vulnerability that audiences rarely saw, and it struck a chord with millions. Critics praised the film as one of his most mature works, proving that even as he aged, Nicholson could still reinvent himself and capture the complexities of the human experience. He followed this with roles in films like Something's Gotta Give, 2003, where he played opposite Diane Keaton in a romantic comedy that showcased his charm and humor. Even as he embraced stories about love and aging, Nicholson showed that he wasn't afraid to confront the realities of growing older, on screen and off. By 2006, Nicholson took on yet another unforgettable role in Martin Scorsese's The Departed. As crime boss Frank Costello, he was menacing, unpredictable, and magnetic, embodying a villain who was both terrifying and strangely charismatic. Nicholson's performance in The Departed proved that even after decades in the industry, he was still capable of dominating modern cinema, still capable of shocking audiences with his intensity. It was a reminder that he was, and always would be, one of Hollywood's greats. But while Nicholson's career was filled with triumphs, his personal life was equally fascinating. Known for his larger-than-life personality, Nicholson developed a reputation as one of Hollywood's most charismatic and unpredictable figures. His relationships, and both romantic and platonic, often made headlines, but it was his friendships within the industry that revealed the softer side of the actor. Among those friendships, his bond with Robin Williams stood out as particularly meaningful. Both men shared a deep appreciation for humor, performance, and the complicated emotions that often lay beneath the surface. Robin, like Nicholson, had an extraordinary ability to make people laugh while carrying his own private struggles. Their friendship wasn't built on publicity or convenience, but on genuine respect and connection. Nicholson admired Robin's unmatched comedic brilliance, his boundless energy, and his kindness off-screen. Over the years, the two spent time together privately, sharing conversations that touched on everything from the pressures of fame to the loneliness that sometimes came with it. When Robin's life ended tragically in 2014, Nicholson was among those who spoke about the profound loss. He described Robin as a truly kind soul, someone who had brought joy to millions yet carried a heaviness that only those close to him truly understood. For Nicholson, Robin's passing was not just the loss of a colleague, but the loss of a friend who had reminded him of the beauty and fragility of life. As Nicholson entered the later years of his career, he began to step away from the spotlight. His final on-screen role came in 2010's How Do You Know, a romantic comedy where he played Paul Rudd's father. Though the film itself received mixed reviews, Nicholson's presence was, as always, magnetic. After that, he quietly retired from acting, choosing instead to live a more private life. While fans were disappointed to see him leave the screen, many also recognized that he had given them more than enough unforgettable performances over the course of his career. By the time Jack Nicholson stepped away from the screen, he had already built a legacy that few could ever hope to match. 3 Academy Awards, 12 Oscar nominations, and a career that spanned over 5 decades. His place in history was secure. Yet Nicholson's story was never just about the accolades. What made him truly unforgettable was his ability to embody every shade of the human experience, from madness to vulnerability, from rebellion to tenderness. Each role he took on became more than just a performance. It became a piece of cultural memory. Whether it was Jack Torrance breaking down a door with an axe in The Shining or Melvin Udall reluctantly admitting love in As Good as It Gets, Nicholson gave audiences characters they would never forget. Even as he withdrew from Hollywood, Nicholson remained a figure of fascination. Fans and journalists often wondered what he was doing in his retirement. He became more reclusive, rarely making public appearances, yet whenever he did, it was an event. His courtside seats at Los Angeles Lakers games became a symbol of his enduring charisma. Even without a camera rolling, Nicholson had a presence that drew attention. It was as though his life itself had become a performance, one that people were still eager to watch. But behind the fame, Nicholson was also a man of reflection. He often spoke about the twists and turns of his life, the unusual family secret he discovered as an adult, the struggles he faced before success, and the relationships that shaped him along the way. He admitted that life in Hollywood had not always been easy. There were temptations, mistakes, and heartbreaks. Yet he carried them all with the same intensity that he brought to his roles. For Nicholson, life and art were always deeply intertwined. It was in those reflections that his memories of Robin Williams carried special weight. For Jack, Robin was not just a friend, but a mirror in many ways. Both men had built careers on intensity, Jack through his raw, often explosive dramatic work, and Robin through his lightning-fast comedy and emotional depth. Both knew what it meant to live in the spotlight while privately wrestling with struggles that the public could not see. When Nicholson spoke of Robin after his passing, there was a genuine sadness in his words. He described Robin as one of the kindest souls he had ever known, someone who poured his energy into lifting others even when he himself was hurting. Nicholson's honesty about Robin revealed something rare in Hollywood: vulnerability. He admitted that Robin's death was a reminder of how fleeting life could be, how even the brightest stars sometimes carry the heaviest burdens. In those moments, Nicholson wasn't just the larger-than-life actor. He was a man grieving the loss of a friend, a man who understood that beneath the glamour of Hollywood, real people were struggling with real pain. It was this ability to speak with such raw honesty that made his reflections so powerful. As Nicholson aged, he began to embrace the idea of legacy. He knew that his career would stand as one of the greatest in film history, but he also wanted to be remembered not just for his roles, but for his humanity. In interviews, he often returned to the theme of gratitude. Despite the hardships, despite the personal struggles, he expressed thankfulness for the opportunities he had been given, for the audiences who had supported him, and for the friendships that had carried him through. His words about Robin Williams were part of that gratitude, an acknowledgement of how much joy and meaning Robin had brought not only to the world, but to Jack himself. In many ways, Nicholson's later reflections tied his entire story together. The boy who grew up not knowing the truth about his family, the struggling actor who spent years in obscurity, the Hollywood star who redefined what it meant to perform. All of these chapters led to an older man who could look back with perspective. His honesty about Robin's kindness and tragedy wasn't just about honoring a friend. It was also about showing the world that even icons like Jack Nicholson are shaped by love, loss, and the bonds they share with others. Today, as Jack Nicholson looks back at his extraordinary life, there is a sense of completion. Few actors have lived a career so full, so transformative, and so deeply tied to the very heart of Hollywood itself. He began with nothing more than persistence and a dream, clawed his way out of obscurity, and became one of the greatest actors of all time. Yet for all the awards and accolades, Nicholson himself has often said that what mattered most wasn't the trophies, but the truth of the performances. He believed that acting was about showing people pieces of themselves, about holding up a mirror that could reveal joy, fear, anger, and love in equal measure. That belief carried him through every role, from the explosive to the intimate, from the terrifying to the tender. At 88, Nicholson no longer seeks the spotlight, but the spotlight will never stop seeking him. His life is now quieter, but his presence remains as vivid as ever, living on in every scene, every line, every unforgettable moment he left behind. And in remembering Robin Williams, he also reminds the world of what truly matters, not the fame, not the awards, but the laughter, the kindness, and the connections that endure long after the lights fade. For Jack Nicholson, that is the truth, a truth born out of a lifetime of roles, a lifetime of reflection, and a lifetime of understanding that behind every performance there is a human story waiting to be told.